morning to you all. Today is September 5th. That is the Teacher's Day. At the very outset, I extend great thanks from my heart to those who have remembered me in this morning. I am always grateful to them and I sincerely pray for their well-being. Yes, today we are studying Thomas Hardy, one of the prolific novelists during the 19th century. Thomas Hardy. His period is between 1840 and 1928. Thomas Hardy was a prolific novelist and poet. He was also a poet. The background of most of Hardy's novels is the semi-fictional land of Wessex. Hardy had used Wessex as the backdrop of most of his novels, which came to be known as Wessex novels. It is semi-fictional, not fully fictional like R.K. Narayan's Malgudi. It is semi-fictional, half real and half dream. Geographically, Wessex comprised 6 odd, strange counties. Counties means provinces. The Wessex in England comprised of 6 odd counties in South England. You know, this Wessex was an inseparable part of Hardy's life. It is part and parcel with Hardy's life. It was an inseparable part of Hardy's life, that is the witness of his birth. He was born in one of the counties of Essex called Dorset. So it was the witness of his birth, childhood and youthful love. It also witnessed this love affair. Hardy's Wessex novels with the background of Wessex, set the trend for the regional novel in English. Actually, these Wessex novels of Thomas Hardy formed the trend of the regional novel form, regional novel in English. Then moreover, nature was a leading character, not a mere backdrop of his novels. Nature was almost a leading character, prominent character in his novels. It was not a mere backdrop of his novels. Thomas Hardy strongly believed in fatalism. What is fatalism? Fatalism means it is the belief that all our actions are predetermined and hence they are inevitable. See, fate intervenes in all our actions, or all our actions, happenings and mishappenings are responsible for the fate. That is what is fatalism. Fatalism. He was a staunch believer of fatalism and had a pessimistic view of life. He had, of course, a pessimistic view of life. He had a deep pessimism in almost all his novels. Thomas Hardy was the son of a builder, born in the county of Dorset. I told you earlier, Dorset. Dorset is one of the counties in Wessex. He was educated at a local school at Dorset, and later in Dorchester. Dorchester is one of the prominent towns in Dorset. Dorchester, he was later educated at Dorchester. Hardy, a prolific and versatile novelist, died in 1928. 1928, that is in 20th century. As a poet, being a poet, he belongs more to the 20th century than the 19th century. His poetic talents developed at the outset of the 20th century, before his death. So we can say, as a poet, He belongs more to the 20th century than to the 19th century. Hardy began his writing career as a novelist with The Poor Man and a Lady. The Poor Man and a Lady. Thomas Hardy began his writing career as a novelist with the publication of The Poor Man and a Lady. He wrote it, but he wrote the novel, but it failed to find a publisher. He was unable of finding a publisher for the novel he wrote. So it was not published. His first published novel is Desperate Remedies. Desperate Remedies. The very first published novel of Thomas Hardy is Desperate Remedies in the year 1871. In it, a very young woman, Cytherea Grace. Cytherea Grace is forced by poverty as a lady's maid to the eccentric Miss Eng.Litt.Sem. Miss Eng.Litt.Sem, an unmarried woman. The woman whom her father had loved. That is the very woman whom Cytherea Grace's father had loved but had been unable to marry. Hardy wrote novels in the tradition of William Makepeace Thackeray and George Eliot. We studied in our last class. Hardy wrote novels in the tradition of Thackeray and George Eliot. Through his novels, he criticized the Victorian society, 19th century's English society. He criticized her. Through his novels, Thomas Hardy vehemently criticized the Victorian society. He focused more on a declining moral society. His focus was more on a declining, degenerating moral society, a society in which morality is declined. Under the Greenwood Tree, a novel. Under the Greenwood Tree, published in the year 1872, was published anonymously without exhibiting the authorship. So, Under the Greenwood Tree in the year 1872 was published anonymously. It was subtitled. The subtitle of Under the Greenwood Tree was subtitled A Rural Painting of the Dutch School. How was it subtitled? It was subtitled as A Rural Painting of the Dutch School. It was the second published novel. And also it was the first of what was to become his series of Wessex novels. It is the second published novel, and it was also the first of what was to become his series of Wessex novels. The novel follows the activities of West Gallery musicians. West Gallery musicians, that is the Millstoke Parish Choir. Millstoke Parish Church Choir. One of the musicians, Dick Davy. One of the choir group is, one of the parish choir group is Dick Davy. He becomes romantically entangled. He becomes romantically attached with a comely new village schoolmistress. A schoolmistress arrives in the locality, and our hero Dick Davy becomes romantically entangled with her. The comely means beautiful, pretty village schoolmistress. Fancy Day is the name of the schoolmistress. Then, A Pair of Blue Eyes, published in the year 1879. A Pair of Blue Eyes. You know, this novel describes Hardy's courtship of his wife. His lovemaking with his wife who later became his wife. His lovemaking with the woman who later became his wife. It describes Hardy's courtship with his wife. Then, Far from the Madding Crowd. Far from the Madding Crowd, published in the year 1874. You know, Thomas Hardy himself said, he first introduced the Wessex in this novel. He points out that he first introduced the Wessex in the novel Far from the Madding Crowd. Wessex is, as I told you earlier, partly real and partly dream, semi-fictional place. The title of the novel is taken from Gray's elegy written in a country churchyard. In the poem, there is a line, far from the madding crowds, far from the madding crowd's ignoble strife. Thus goes a line in elegy written in a country churchyard by Thomas Gray. And from the elegy, he took the title, Far from the Madding Crowd. Bathsheba Everdeen, William Boldwood, Frank Troy, and Gabriel Oak are the main characters in the novel. It deals with the themes of love, honor, H-O-N-O-U-R, honor, and betrayal, deception, betrayal. These are the three themes included in this novel. Which are they? The themes of love, honor, and betrayal. The novel describes the life and relationships of Bathsheba, the heroine Bathsheba Everdeen, with her lonely neighbors, William Boldwood, and the faithful shepherd. Shepherd means one who takes care of the sheep. Shepherd, faithful shepherd, sincere shepherd, Gabriel Oak, and the thriftless, extravagant soldier, Sergeant Troy. You know, the novel describes the life and relationships of Bathsheba Everdeen with her lonely neighbors, William Boldwood, and the faithful shepherd Gabriel Oak, and the thriftless soldiers, Sergeant Troy. Gabriel Oak, the shepherd, he is a young shepherd. With his savings and a loan, he has leased a farm. He falls in love with a newcomer to the locality, Bathsheba Everdeen, a proud beauty. She is a proud beauty who arrives to live with her aunt. When this shepherd Gabriel Oak proposes, she refuses. She considered him to be a very uncivilized rustic, so she refuses. She values her independence much. After a few days, she moves away from the town. After a few days, she moves to Weatherbury, a village miles away from this place. An inexperienced sheepdog is the dog trained to manage the sheep on a farm. An inexperienced sheepdog drives Gabriel's flock sheep over a cliff, and all the sheep die and causes his ruin. This incident causes the ruin of Gabriel Oak. Soon he became penniless. He became bankrupt. He became without money. So he goes to Shortsford. Gabriel Oak goes to Shortsford, a town 10 miles away from Weatherbury. On the way, he happens upon a dangerous fire on a farm, and he leads the onlookers or the bystanders in putting it out, in extinguishing the fire. He becomes the leader of the group, and he, with his strenuous efforts, he extinguishes or puts out the fire. When the owner comes to thank him, he asks if she needs a shepherd. Out of his difficulties, he asked the owner whether the owner needs the service of a shepherd. The owner is none other than Bathsheba. She has recently inherited her uncle's estate and is now wealthy. She is now a wealthy woman. Though somewhat uncomfortable, she employs him. She is not interested in Gabriel as he is a rustic fellow without any neatness. So, somewhat uncomfortable, she employs him. She gives him job of a shepherd. Meanwhile, Bathsheba gains a new admirer. She gains a new admirer, new lover, William Boldwood. His name is William Boldwood, a prosperous farmer. He is also an agriculturist fellow. He is a prosperous farmer, about 40 years of age. William Boldwood is about 40. Boldwood soon becomes obsessed with Bathsheba and proposes marriage. However, she avoids him a definite answer. She does not give Boldwood a definite answer on the proposal. When Gabriellos rebukes her for her thoughtlessness regarding Boldwood, she dismisses him. Then Gabriello intervenes and points out that Mr. Boldwood is a man of good character. He is a rich farmer. She had better marry him. If she wants to be safe and secure in her life, she had better marry him. Thus gives an advice. Gabriello gives such an advice. Actually, in his heart of hearts, there is a stream of love for this woman, but hiding everything, he only wants the welfare of the woman he loves. So, Gabriello advises her to marry Boldwood. And she doesn't like this advice. And out of fury, Bathsheba dismisses him from his service. Then when Bathsheba's sheep die from bloat is a disease which is caused on sheep. When Bathsheba's sheep die from bloat, she discovers that Gabriel is the only man who knows how to cure the disease, cure the sheep. She realizes that Gabriel is the only man who knows how to cure the sheep. She is forced to beg Gabriel for his help. Finally, she is compelled or impelled to seek help from Gabriel. Yes, Bathsheba offers him back his job, and their friendship is thus restored. At this point, an important happening occurs. The dashing Sergeant Roy, dashing means cultured, fashionable, self-confident Sergeant Roy, he returns to his native land, Weatherbury. He takes a leave from his army and he comes back to his native land, Weatherbury. He by chance, accidentally, meets Bathsheba. He excites her with a private display of swordsmanship. He by chance meets Bathsheba and he excites her with a private display of swordsmanship. And Bathsheba becomes infatuated with him. When Gabriel finds this infatuation, strong liking for Troy, he advises that she had better marry Boldwood, the rich and cultured farmer. And Boldwood comes to know of this new affair. Boldwood becomes aggressive towards Troy. Boldwood becomes angry and he becomes aggressive towards Troy. Boldwood also offers a large bribe to his rival Troy to give up Bathsheba. A situation, the same kind of situation we found in a Malayalam movie, Adagiya Ravana. Boldwood also offers a large bribe to his rival to give up Bathsheba. Troy at this point scornfully, contemptuously announces that they are already married. Bathsheba and Sergeant Roy are already married. Boldwood withdraws, humiliated. He is greatly humiliated and vows revenge. He vows revenge. I will kill you. He vows servants. Bathsheba soon discovers that her husband Troy is a gambler with little interest in farming. He does not have any interest in farming and agriculture. She begins to suspect that whether he loves her. He begins to suspect that he doesn't love her. In fact, Troy's shirt belongs to her former servant Fanny Robin. Bathsheba had a former servant Fanny Robin. Before meeting Bathsheba, he had fallen in love with her, Fanny Robin. Before meeting Bathsheba, Troy had promised to marry her. And also they arranged a wedding day. On the wedding day, the luckless girl, the unlucky girl, Fanny Robin, goes to the wrong church. Sergeant Troy, humiliated, very much ashamed and humiliated, he called off, cancelled the wedding. When they parted, when Fanny Robin and Troy parted, when they were separated, Fanny was pregnant with Troy's child. Some months later, Troy and Bathsheba met Fanny on the road. She was in a miserable condition. Troy sends his wife onward. Troy, unwittingly, without her knowing, sends her away. And then Troy comes to Fanny Robin and he gives Fanny all the money in his pocket. A few hours later, after departure of Troy, Fanny dies in childbirth. She gives birth to a child and both of them die. The mother and the child die. Fanny dies in childbirth along with the baby. The mother and the child are placed in a coffin and sent to Weatherbury for interment. Interment means burial. For burial ceremony. Gabriel, who knows of Troy's relationship with Fanny, Gabriel, the farmer, the shepherd, he knows the relationship with Fanny Robin. Troy's relationship with Fanny Robin. Tries to conceal the child's existence. He, however, tries to hide the child's existence in the coffin. Bathsheba agrees that the coffin can be left in the house overnight. The next day is the burial day. Overnight, the coffin can be left in the house of Bathsheba. She agrees so. When all the servants are in bed, when all the servants had gone to sleep, Bathsheba unscrews the lid and sees the two bodies inside, the dead bodies of the mother and the child inside. And the volcano suddenly breaks out. Unable to bear Bathsheba's company, Troy leaves the place. Troy tells that always there was Fanny Robin in his heart. He loves more of Fanny Robin than of Bathsheba, and a quarrel arises, and Troy leaves the place. After a long walk, after walking for a long time, he bathes in the sea. He takes a bath in the sea, leaving his clothes on the shore. A strong current carries him away. A strong current occurs and it washes him away, but he is rescued by a rowing boat. But he does not return to Weatherbury. He does not return to Weatherbury or Bathsheba. Then after a year, after the passage of a year, Boldwood, the lonely rich neighbor Boldwood, renews his suit, renews his proposal to Bathsheba, who had become the widow in everyone's eyes. Bathsheba reluctantly means with a great hesitation, consents to marry him. Bathsheba gives her consent reluctantly or with hesitation. Bathsheba reluctantly consents to marry Boldwood in 6 years. She wanted a 6 years time, long enough to have Troy declared dead. It is a time she wants to have Troy declared dead. Then what happens? Troy returns to Weatherbury on Christmas Eve. On the evening just before the Christmas day, Troy returns to Weatherbury on Christmas Eve and goes to Baldwood's house where a party is underway. At Baldwood's house, everybody is assembled there. Bathsheba, Gabriel are assembled there. Then he reaches there and he orders Bathsheba to go with him. He seizes her hand and she screams. Suddenly she screams aloud. At this, Baldwood shoots Troy dead. Baldwood takes his gun and shoots him dead. Although Baldwood is convicted of murder and sentenced to be hanged, he was sentenced to be hanged. Then his friends petition the Home Secretary. His friends come and petition the Home Secretary for mercy, claiming insanity. They claim that Baldwood is insane, Baldwood is mad. Thus, Baldwood's sentence is commuted to confinement. His sentence is reduced to mere confinement for many years. Bathsheba buries her husband in the same grave as Fanny Brown and the child. Bathsheba buries Sergeant Troy in the same grave as Fanny Robin and the child. Throughout their sufferings and tribulations, Bathsheba comes to rely increasingly on her oldest and the only real friend Gabriel Oak. She realizes that Gabriel Oak is the real faithful friend of hers. Then one day Gabriel gives her notice, issues her a notice that he is leaving her employment. He is going elsewhere. He is leaving her employment. Suddenly, when she comes to know that the man is leaving, she gets a prick of her conscience. She is deeply pained on hearing this. At this point, she realizes how important he has become in her life. Only now, at the point of his leaving, she does realize how important he has become in her life and in her well-being. As I have told many times, the worth of a thing is best known by the want of it. When he gives notice that he is leaving the farm, she comes to realize how important the man is in her life. That night, she goes alone to visit Gabriel Oak in his cottage, just to find why he is deserting her. What is the reason behind his departure? Why he is going away from the farm? For finding out, she goes to Gabriel Oak's cottage. When she asks why he is ready to leave her, then he reluctantly reveals that people have started gossiping that he wants to marry her. People have started gossiping that they are in love. She exclaims that it is absurd, too soon to think of a marriage. It is very soon to think of. My husband lies buried in the graveyard, and the man who loved me is in prison. It is too soon to think of. Yes, then he bitterly agrees that it is absurd. I know, madam, I don't deserve you. I don't have any deserving to get married to you. I am a rustic fellow with all my ugliness. I am a shepherd, mere shepherd. I don't want to cause any harm to your life. Yes, it is absurd, I know. Then she corrects him. No, I just told you that. Didn't you listen to my words? I just told you that it is only too soon. It is only too soon. Wait some more months. I can't leave you. Yes, I won't allow you to leave from this farm. I can't tolerate it. I can't endure your absence. Now he is emboldened. He became bold enough to ask for her hand in marriage. He proposes her. She accepts, and the two are quietly married. Gabriel and Bathsheba quietly married. Finally, Gabriel's dream comes true. Then another novel, The Return of the Native. The Return of the Native, published in the year 1878. It is Hardy's sixth published novel. It became one of Hardy's most popular and highly regarded novel. The Return of the Native, published in the year 1878, is Hardy's sixth published novel. It became one of Hardy's most popular and highly regarded novel. Then The Mayor of Casterbridge, an important novel. The Mayor of Casterbridge. It is subtitled The Life and Death of a Man of Character. Actually, man of character means a man of good character. In this subtitle, it means that a man of strong character, a man with a great willpower, a strong man, both in physique and psyche. The Life and Death of a Man of Character is the subtitle of The Mayor of Casterbridge. The most important characters are Michael Henjade, Donald Farfrae, and Elizabeth Jane. Michael Henjade, Donald Farfrae, and Elizabeth Jane. See, 21-year-old Michael Henjade, in a drunken joke, while he and his family are in a drunken joke, gives in auction his wife Susan and the small child, his child Elizabeth Jane, to a sailor named Newson for 5 guineas. For just a small amount of money, 5 guineas. He regrets the next morning. He regrets his action the next morning and vows not to drink alcohol for another 21 years. He is now 21. He vows that he would not take alcohol for another 21 years. Then 18 years later, years have passed by, and 18 years later, Newson is dead. The sailor Newson is dead. So Susan and her daughter Elizabeth Jane seek out Henjade, who is now very prosperous merchant and the mayor of Casterbridge. Michael Henjade is the mayor of Casterbridge. So Lucy and Elizabeth Jane come to Henjade for covering up his deceitful, disgraceful action. Henjade once again courts Lucy and marries her. In order to keep up his decency in the eyes of the people, he does so. Then Donald Farfrae, young Scot, he is from Scotland. A young Scot is the manager of Henjade's corn business, grain business, corn business. Donald Farfrae courts Elizabeth Jane. He loves Elizabeth Jane and proposes to her. Henjade dismisses Farfrae from his service because he outshines or outsmarts, excels. Donald Farfrae excels or outsmarts or outshines Henjade in everything. Then Susan, Henjade's wife Susan, dies. And Susan had written a letter to be read by Henjade. Henjade came to know from the letter written by Susan that Elizabeth Jane is Newson's daughter and not his. Actually, his daughter Elizabeth Jane had died when she was a small child living with Newson. The young child died. And later, for Susie and Newson, a daughter was born. And that child is named Elizabeth Jane. Elizabeth Jane. And this Elizabeth Jane, who is living with Eng.Litt. is Newson's daughter, not his. From the letter, Eng.Litt. comes to know that. Eng.Litt. is now very cold towards Elizabeth Jane. And Elizabeth Jane, lives with a Lucetta Templeman. Lives as a maid to Lucetta Templeman, a French lady who had arrived in Castle Bridge. There is now a decline in Eng.Litt.'s fortunes. Suddenly, after the departure of Farfrae from his service, there is a steady decline in Eng.Litt.'s fortunes. Lucetta Templeman, with whom Elizabeth Jane now lives, she has recently arrived in Castle Bridge. Earlier, she had been romantically involved with Eng.Litt. And she wrote a lot of love letters to him, leading to his disgrace. But Eng.Litt. Did not heed to her advice of marriage. Thus she was disgraced. Then Lucetta Templeman meets Farfrae, Donald Farfrae, and marries him. Lucetta Templeman marries Donald Farfrae, who actually proposed to Elizabeth Jane. And on seeing Lucetta Templeman, the rich lady, his mind goes towards her, and he proposes and marries her. And she becomes pregnant. Lucetta Templeman becomes pregnant. She asks Lucetta Templeman asks Eng.Litt. to give back the love letters. In earlier times, the only source of communication was love letters between lovers, and when the love breaks out, it was the habit of asking back the love letters. Now, Lucetta Templeman, fearing the love letters would bring about any harm towards her married life, she asks Eng.Litt. to retain the love letters. Eng.Litt. sends the letters through his enemy Job. There was a man named Job who was earlier dismissed from his farm, from Eng.Litt.'s farm, named Job. Job was actually his enemy. Job was very hostile to Eng.Litt. Eng.Litt. does not know this. So he sends a letter through Job. Job reads out the love letters in the company of his friends at an inn and puts Lucetta to public disgrace. Then people know that Lucetta was a woman of loose character. She was an immoral woman. She had been in love with Eng.Litt. And this was something Lucetta was unable to bear. So this incident brings about a ruin. Lucetta dies of an epileptic seizure. Epilepsy. Meanwhile, meanwhile, Donald Farfrae's fortunes were increasing tremendously. Newson, who was actually alive, he was not dead, who was actually alive, meets Eng.Litt. And as for Elizabeth Jane, he knows from the people that Lucy was dead. So he asks for Elizabeth Jane. Eng.Litt. tells him that she is dead. Out of anger, Eng.Litt. tells a lie to him. Eng.Litt. tells Newson that Elizabeth Jane, his daughter, is dead. Actually, she is living with Lucetta Templeman. However, Elizabeth Jane is united with Newson and knows of Eng.Litt.'s deceit. And now Elizabeth Jane knows of Eng.Litt.'s deceit. Then, at this point, her marriage with Donald Farfrae, who had become a widower, Donald Farfrae, takes place. On the day of the marriage, Eng.Litt. comes to meet Elizabeth Jane, but she snaps him. She sends him away. She avoids him. She neglects him. So, with a broken heart, Eng.Litt. returns, and he soon dies. Broken-heartedly, Eng.Litt. dies. That is the tragic end of the novel. The mayor of Casterbridge, the mayor Michael Eng.Litt. dies tragically. The next novel, The Woodlanders. The Woodlanders, the story takes place in a small woodland village called Little Hindock. Little Hindock is the name of the woodland village. And the novel concerns the efforts of an honest woodsman, Giles Winterbourne. It concerns with the efforts of an honest woodsman, Giles Winterbourne, to marry his childhood sweetheart, Grace Melbury. Grace Melbury. Giles Winterbourne's efforts to marry his childhood sweetheart, childhood love, Grace Melbury. Then another important novel, Tess of D'Urbervilles. Tess of the D'Urbervilles. Tess of the D'Urbervilles, published in the year 1891. 1891. It is controversially subtitled A Pure Woman. Pure Woman. Actually, Tess is not a pure woman. She becomes immoral, and actually it is circumstances that made her immoral or a woman of loose character. But she is not, of course, pure. She is like the heroine of the new Malayalam movie, See You Soon. Here also, Tess has become immoral because of the pressure of circumstances. That is why Thomas Hardy gave the subtitle, A Pure, not a poor, pure, a pure woman. It first appeared in a censored and serialized version published by the British newspaper The Graphic. It was first published in the British newspaper The Graphic in 1891 in a censored and serialized version. It appeared first in the British newspaper The Graphic in 1891 in a serialized and censored version. So the novel appeared in book form and in a single volume in 1892. Earlier it appeared in 3 volumes. It appeared in a book form and in a single volume in the year 1892. It is considered as a major 19th century English novel. The novel is considered as a major 19th century English novel and even had its fictional masterpiece. It is reckoned to be or considered to be had his fictional masterpiece. Then A Pair of Blue Eyes, which was published in the year 1878. I told you earlier, it deals with Hardy's courtship of his wife. Then The Trumpet Major, published in the year 1880. 1880. Hardy published it in 1880, and it is his only historical novel. The only historical novel of Thomas Hardy is The Trumpet Major. It concerns some heroic activities. It concerns the heroine Annie Garland. The heroine Annie Garland being pursued by 3 suitors. It deals with a triangle love. The lady, the heroine Annie Garland, is pursued or followed by or courted by 3 suitors. John Loveday, he is the trumpet major in a British regiment. Then his brother Bob, the second man is his brother Bob, he is a sailor. He also courts Annie Garland. And Festus Derryman, the cowardly nephew of a local nobleman. The cowardly nephew of the local squire, Festus Derryman. These 3 people run after the lady Annie. What is her name? Heroine Annie Garland. These 3 men, he foolishly run after the heroine Annie Garland. Unusually for a Hardy novel, when we examine this novel, we can see that unusually for a Hardy novel, the ending is not entirely tragic. The ending of the novel is not entirely or completely tragic. All other novels are having a tragic end. Tragedies are there. This is not a tragic novel. This historical novel is not tragic. Then Jude the Obscure. Jude the Obscure, published in 1896. It is Addie's last completed novel. Its protagonist, Jude Fawley. Jude Fawley is working class. He is a working class young man. To be specific, he is a stone mason. What is his name? Jude Fawley. Jude Fawley is a working class young man, a stone mason who dreams of becoming a scholar. Who always dreams of becoming a scholar. The other main character is his cousin. Jude Fawley's cousin, Sue Bridehead, who is also his central love interest. The center of his thoughts also has his cousin Sue Bridehead. Sue Bridehead also occupies his center of thoughts. That means the cousin is also his central love interest. So the novel Jude the Obscure is concerned with the issues of class, education, religion, morality and marriage. These are the issues that are discussed by the novel. The novel discusses all these issues like class, education, religion, morality and marriage. Class, education, religion, morality and marriage. Then another novel, The Well-Beloved, published in the year 1897. The main setting of the novel is the Isle of Slingers. The island of Slingers. And the island of Slingers or the Isle of Slingers is based on the Isle of Portland in Dorset. The real place, the real island Portland in Dorset, where Hardy was born, in southern England. The Well-Beloved is one of Hardy's last novels. It is one of Hardy's last novels. It tells the story of a sculptor, SCULPTOR, sculpture, one who makes statues. It tells the story of the sculptor Jocelyn Pearson's search for the ideal woman through 3 generations of a Portland family. It tells the story of the sculptor. What is his name? What is the sculptor's name? Jocelyn Pearson. Jocelyn Pearson's search for the ideal woman, the real woman, ideal woman through 3 generations of a Portland family. Then about his short stories. Wessex Tales, published in the year 1897. A group of noble dames, noble ladies, published in the year 1891. And Life's Little Ironies, another collection of short stories published in the year 1894. Then A Changed Man, published in the year 1930. A Changed Man. These are his famous for short stories, collection of short stories. He left fiction writing for poetry and published the 8 collections including Wessex Poem, published in the year 1898, and Satires of Circumstance, published in the year 1912. Towards the end of his life, towards the close, he abandoned fiction writing for poetry. He took poetry and published the 8 collections of poems, including Wessex Poem, published in the year 1898, and Stories of Circumstance, published in 1912. Hardy's poetry is traditionalist in technique. When we examine the features of Hardy's poetry, we can see that his poetry is traditionalist in technique. It follows the pattern of tradition and modernist in theme. In technique it is traditionalist, but in theme it is modern. His poetry is modern. His poems are modern. His poems are traditionalist in technique and modernist in themes. Through his poems, he explores a fatalist outlook, his belief in fatalism. Through his poems, he explores, he searches a fatalist outlook against the backdrop of the dark, rugged means uncivilized, rough landscape of his native Dorset. In the background of his dark, uncivilized landscape of Dorset, his native Dorset, he explores a fatalist outlook through his poems. He believes in fatalism, that is the belief that our actions are predetermined and hence they are inevitable to happen. They are inevitable. They are sure to happen. Then he rejects the Victorian belief in a benevolent God. Through his poems, when we examine his poems, we can see that he has become almost an atheist. He behaves like an atheist in his poems. He rejects the idea of a kind, benevolent God, unlike the Victorians. Okay, this is about Thomas Hardy. Study all this and stay safe.